Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity. I am indeed feeling blessed to stand before all of you. But I have a strong confession to make. I am not an orator, so you will have to forgive me for whatever problem I have with my flow of the talk. So the talk is about pseudo rationalism and pseudo social reforms. So the pseudo social justice and pseudo rationalism are the two cornerstones of the Dravidian movement. When you look at actually the core essentials of the Dravidian movement, we may have hatred for them, we may have aversion for them, but we have to understand them. How is it that this particular movement that has very clear, very naked lies at its core have been able to hypnotize the people of the state? So what was the reason? இப்படி தன் அகத்தில் ஒரு முழுமையான பொய்யை வைத்திருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு உண்மையின்மையை வைத்திருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு இயக்கம் திராவிட இயக்கம். திராவிட இயக்கத்தின் அடிப்படையாக இருக்கக்கூடியவை முழுக்க முழுக்க பொய்கள். ஆனால் இந்த இயக்கம் இத்தனை ஆண்டு காலங்கள் பல தசாப்தங்களாக தமிழ்நாட்டு மக்களை தங்களுடைய பிடிக்குள் வைத்திருக்கிறது. அதற்கான காரணம் என்ன என்பதை நாம் சற்று விலகி நின்று ஆராய வேண்டும். நம்முடைய விருப்பு வெறுப்புகளை தள்ளி வைத்துவிட்டு அப்ஜெக்டிவாக காமும் செப்பாது கண்டது முடியுமோ என்று சொல்வார்கள். தன்னுடைய உணர்வுகளை சொல்லாமல் உண்மையில் என்ன விஷயம், ஏன் திராவிட இயக்கத்தினால் இப்படி ஒரு வெற்றியை அதனுடைய பொய்மையை தாண்டி உருவாக்க முடிந்திருக்கிறது என்பதை நாம் புரிந்து கொள்ள வேண்டும். ஏனென்றால் நாம் போரிடக்கூடியது நம் முன்னால் இருக்கக்கூடிய திராவிட இயக்கத்தோடு மட்டுமல்ல. அந்த திராவிட இயக்கம் என்று நாம் முன்னால் பார்க்கக்கூடிய விஷயத்திற்கு பின்னால் இருக்கக்கூடிய திராவிட இயக்கமோ தமிழ் தேசியமோ எந்த ஒரு பிரிவினைவாதமோ அதற்கு பின்னால் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஏறக்குறைய 200 ஆண்டுகள் பழமை வாய்ந்த காலனிய சக்திகளோடு நாம் போரிட்டுக் கொண்டிருக்கிறோம். The kernel behind the Dravidian interface is almost 200 years old. It is the colonial evangelical missionary. Not missionary, machinery, the complete system that is there. It is academic, it is in the media, it is in the politics, it is in the society, in the form of activism. In the combined structure, we are actually fighting against. So we have to understand what actually makes it work. To understand that, we go into, in this particular presentation, we go into the history of actual rationalism. What is rationalism? What is the cultural and the historical context of rationalism? So, we go there. How do we go? Can someone change it? That will be better actually. Can you go to the first slide? Yeah. Okay. So, when we talk about rationalism, we have to understand, we can go to the first slide actually. Yeah. When we talk about rationalism, I remember a particular article that came in Outlook. It was written by S. Anand. He is supposed to be an intellectual heading the Dalit movement. He himself was not a Dalit. And he said that no Indian language has a term for rationalism. No Indian language, except Tamil, because in Tamil you have the term Paguttarivu, and that is because of the Dravidian movement. So rationalism itself was crafted into the Indian culture by the Dravidian movement. Is it true? We just go and search for the etymology of the term reason. The etymology of the term reason, because reason is supposed to be the so-called Indo-European term. So, etymology of the term reason actually comes from the root word ar, which in turn is also the root word for rita. So, rita and reason are related together very generically. So, this very statement that reason does not have an Indian term is wrong. And if you go further, you will understand that Ar is also related to Arivu and Aram. So you actually have a complete collapse of the Aryan Dravidian theory in terms of linguistics here, because you have Arivu, Aram, which are supposed to be pure Tamil words, but they have the so-called Proto-Indo-European roots. So whatever it is. So Arivu essentially means reason. Very interestingly, I think it was 9/11/1953, E.V. Ramasamy has written an article in which he also acknowledges the fact that Arivu also means so-called Paguttarivu. But Paguttarivu is not rationalism. Rationalism essentially means connecting the cause and the effect. Connecting the correct cause and the correct effect, that is called rationalism. So, Paguttarivu illa adu. அது கூட்டறிவு அப்படின்னு நம்ம சொல்லலாம். அறிவு அப்படின்ட்டு சொன்னாலே அதுதான். That is a different thing, right? So you have problem. That is the first thing. That reason is very much an Indian term. Rationalism is an Indian concept that has deep roots. And it was not E.V. Ramasamy who created this in Tamil or Indian context. But you got to understand that this is the campaign. This is the media narrative, this is the construct that has been created. And in the case of Western rationalism, most probably we will consider René Descartes, whom you see here, a mathematician and a philosopher, as the father of rationalism, or rather say the father of modern thought process in the Western tradition. And he was also a person who was a person of dualist notion, that the thinking part and the physical part are entirely different. The mind and the matter are entirely different. They two belong to two different realms. They are not related. They were united by, in human beings, for example, the thinking aspect and the material aspect have been united by a divine will. So, this kind of a dualism is also part of the rationalist tradition of the West. So, this is the Western rationalist tradition. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. Right. Now, I told you about these binary categories. The Indian tradition rejects categories. Indian tradition is for continuum. This is very much given to us, even to our children, in the form of the Puranic episode of Prahalada and Hiranyakasipu. What were the boons that Hiranyakasipu got? That he should not be killed in the morning, in the daytime, he should not be killed in the night time. He should not be killed by an animal, he should not be killed by a human being, he should not be killed by a devata. He should not be killed by weapons, he should not be killed by hands. In all this, if you see, he was specifying the categories. He was specifying the categories. He always forgot the continuum. Between the outside and inside, there is a continuum of the door. Between the day and the night, there is the continuum of the Sandhya time. Between the weapon and the hands, there is the continuum of the nail. Between an animal and the human form, there is a continuum of the transient form. He was not able to look into the continuum, and that was his greatest mistake. And from there comes another great blunder. What was that blunder? I am your creator, I am your father, you should worship only me. நான் உன்னுடைய கர்த்தன், நான் உன்னுடைய தகப்பன், என்னை தவிர உனக்கு வேறு தெய்வம் கிடையாது. That was the basis of Hiranyakasipu's blunder. And this blunder also has another one problem. The problem is that it rejects the omnipresence of the divine. This is another important aspect of Indian culture alone, as far as I know. You can talk of the divine as the omniscient. The divine knows everything. You can talk of the divine as the omnipotent. The divine is capable of everything. That you can see in all the religions throughout the world. But to talk of the divine, to realize the divine as omnipresent, that happens only in the Hindu culture, in the Indian culture. That is why Hiranyakasipu, from his dualism to his monopolistic expansionism is more than monotheism. You say In monotheism, at least you say there is one God. That's all. In monopolistic tendency, what you say is that there is only one God and that is my God. So he was telling, I am the creator, I am the father, I am the God. You cannot worship any other God. At that particular point of time, you have to reject the omnipresence of the God. If God is everywhere, then you cannot claim a special status to yourself. So he was rejecting that. So that is why he was asking, where is your God? And he was telling the God, the little Prahalada was telling, the God is there in the speck of an atom as well as in this pillar. And from the pillar, the fewest form of the divine emerged. So this particular aspect is actually shows this Puranic thing. Just think about the greatness of our culture, a Puranic episode that we tell each and every child in this nation grows with it. It contains a very strong philosophical, spiritual truth encoded in it. And that also shows the deficiency of the reductionist rationalism of the West. We have the intuitive capacity to understand that. Are we understanding that it or not is another question. But you have been given the equipments, the cultural tools. You have been given the ability to understand that. Whether we use it or not is another question. Now we go to the next slide. Can we go to the next slide? And in India, we have developed holistic rationalism. From Adi Shankara to Meghkandar, I am showing two examples from India. The third example that I am showing is also very important, that is Baruch Spinoza. I go through the textbooks of our schools, syllabus. I find one thing very interesting. They talk about the Western Industrial Revolution, they talk about Western Enlightenment, they talk about Martin Luther, they talk about all these things, but they never talk about Spinoza, whereas Spinoza is the basis of true Western Renaissance. And he was an Advaiti. Baruch Spinoza was an Advaiti. And he was the person whom Albert Einstein quoted. Unfortunately, our textbooks don't talk about it. I sincerely ask the people here who are the decision-making authority, who will be decision-making authorities, who have influence in the decision-making authorities, to include Baruch Spinoza here. And we start with Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara very clearly states that when he is talking about the Maya Nirupana in Viveka Chudamani, he very, very beautifully says that Maya is the basis of the universe that we see. And it is not something to be despised. It is something to be studied. It is the web of the causal relations. And it is by studying this web of the causal relations that you can actually understand the nature of Brahman. So, Maya is not illusion. That is something that we have to understand. Maya is not illusion. Avyakta Namni, that is the term that Adi Shankara uses for Maya, Avyakta. Avyakta is also the name of goddess in Sri Lalita Sahasranama. So, here, the Western ontology as well as the Pseudo Rationalism, they created a narrative telling that we considered everything as Maya, so we didn't study the world, we didn't study the universe, we always thought of human miseries as a kind of a Maya illusion, so we ignored them. It is not true. Next, what you see is Meghkandar. Meghkandar became enlightened when he was just 2. And he gave a very wonderful explanation of Advaita. His Advaita was called Sivadvaita. Now, whenever you are told about Advaita, you always think of the same gold becoming different ornaments. But the gold is the same. That is the Advaita you talk about. But Meghkandar told that Advaita is something different. Here, think of the sunlight. This is what the example he gives. Think of the sunlight. The sunlight comes into your cornea and into your nervous system. And with the physiological apparatus it operates. And you have your own life form, your own life force. That also operates with it. At particular point, the light from the sun, your own vital processes, your own cognitive apparatus, they all become one to create an experience, qualia. The modern consciousness researchers call it qualia. At that particular qualia, everything becomes non-dual. At that particular qualia, your physical light, your physiological apparatus, your cognitive apparatus, they all become non-dual. That point is the point of Advaita. So, think about it. You have somebody like Megandar. Take any textbook in Tamilnadu. You have a chapter on Megandar? No. Why? You have here an example. A template has been given to you to study consciousness. A template has been given to you just 3 or 4 days before in Scientific American. There was an article about vision, and they were talking about the vision is more psychological than physical. And here you have a template. I am not telling that Megandar knew exactly the rods, cones, cornea, etc. of the visual apparatus that we have inside our brain. No, he didn't know all those things. But he gave a philosophical template. The template that was more holistic. So here you have a holistic rationalism. In India, we have developed this holistic rationalism. Now we come to the pseudo rationalism. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now we come to pseudo rationalism. What is pseudo rationalism? A very good demonstration of pseudo rationalism was given by Tamilnadu press very recently. When BJP leader Annamalai ji, when he told that you are jumping like monkeys, then they told that you have called us as monkeys. Okay. The point is, when you tell that someone is very good in mathematics, in Tamil Nadu you have a common term, Kanakkula Puli. And then the pseudo-rationalist would ask you, then why he is not having 4 legs? So that is pseudo-rationalism for you. Pseudo-rationalism is taking literally the meaning in a very foolish way. But there is a venom in it. That is what you have to understand. There is venom. The venom is this, that you want to make your opponent look like an idiot. The next thing is, who is your opponent? Your opponent is your own person, your own brother. The difference between anti-Semitism and this Dravidianism is that in anti-Semitism, the non-Jews hated the Jews. In Dravidianism, our own brothers were made to hate our own cultural self, which is more dangerous, which is actually can lead to genocide. Today, if in Tamil Nadu there is no genocide, it is mainly because of the cultural strength of India, the cultural strength of Sanatana Dharma. Even a Dravidianist knows when he has to do Ayush Homam, which community he needs. He knows that. That is why the genocide is not happening. At the same time, we cannot take this for granted. These cultural ties are holding, or I would say the Punya Bala of our ancestors are holding us. But we also have to act, we also have to reinforce these aspects. Otherwise, we are going to be in big trouble, like in Rwanda or in Sri Lanka, we are going to be in trouble. So, we will go to the next one. Here is an example, a very perfect example I am giving you of pseudo-rationalism and holistic rationalism. This, here you see, can you see? Here you can see the poster made by Dravida Kalagam when astronauts landed on the moon. So they showed this poster telling that in the head of Shiva is the crescent moon and astronauts have landed on that itself. So the American astronaut had put his feet on the head of Shiva. Now this is an example for pseudo-rationalism because he takes the dance of Shiva as literal. As any of our great saints, have they told that this dance is literal, that actual moon is on the head of Shiva? Has any of us told us? We will come to that later. But just think about this. Here I have 3 examples. One is by Ilya Prigogine. Ilya Prigogine was a Nobel laureate. He was working on the dynamics of molecules. He wanted to publish a book on thermodynamics. The book is on thermodynamics. The book was not on Nataraja. The book was not on Indian culture. It was on thermodynamics. And what is the most beautiful dynamic image of that particular domain that he was researching he got? It was Shiva's Nataraja. And you have another one, ecologist. He was studying the ecological aspects and he saw Shiva as the great metaphor for ecological dynamics. And you have Richo Capra who was studying the particles, the dynamics of the subatomic particles, and he also came up with the dance of Shiva as the metaphor. Think about it. Again I am telling you, this is something that we have to be very careful. We cannot allow pseudoscience to enter this. This does not mean that atoms are dancing like Shiva or anything. It does not mean that our ancestors knew about electron, protons, or quarks or string theory. It is not that. It is that the dance of Shiva is always evolving with the enlargement of the human knowledge. They have created a beautiful form like this for us. And what do we do? What do? We demean it with this kind of posters. And then it is from this poster, it is just a couple of steps that you smuggle out Nataraja icons and you sell it to the idol smugglers. Right. So, this is about what actually pseudo rationalism is. Now we move to the next one. Can we go fast? Yeah. Here we see a very good example of what actually the Hindu rationalism is. Everybody knows this particular verse by Tirumular. Muppuram Setanan Enbargal Mudargal Muppuramavadu Mummala Karyam. Right? So, when Shiva destroyed the three Tripuras, it did not mean that he destroyed them literally. Tirumular says us that the three Tripuras, they actually symbolize the three inner pollutants. The ego, karma, maya. So, here you have a template. This is a very interesting thing because throughout the world, the rationalists, they consider their religious text as poetry. For example, Genesis, they consider it as poetry. The rationalists will consider it as poetry. The fundamentalists will take the literal meaning. In India, it is the reverse. Here, we take the symbolic and the poetic and the mystical meaning. The so-called rationalists take the direct meaning. So here, this is a perfect example for pseudo-rationalism. We go to the next actually. Yeah. Now we are coming to the social justice part. We have always been told that this particular nation is filled with the social inequalities. Every society in the world has been filled with the social inequalities. In every society, you have birth-based social discrimination. In every society, you have birth-based social exclusion. But it is only in the Hindu society, throughout the history, these social discriminations and social exclusions have been questioned. So here I give you two examples. One is Sri Mahabhakta Vijayam. It was published by Lifco. It is a very old text. It was published by Lifco. And the introduction was written by Namakkal Kavinyar. So you can imagine, it was older than the Dravidian movement, actually, this particular text. And the Sri Mugam was given by Kanchi Kamagodi Pidadipati Sri Jayendra Saraswati Swamigal. And in this text, when you go inside, you will find that there are seers, sages from every community. And this was the basis of a great revolutionary when he studied Sri Mahabhakta Vijayam, he became a social revolutionary. We will come to that. And that name would not even have registered in the mind of people because we will now go through fast. The next scene you are seeing, you have Umabadi Sivacharya and his guru. When they were walking, just to remove the concept of caste, the guru went, no, the previous one please. Yeah. The guru went to the street of the weavers. The weavers would be having a lot of starch. The form of rice, starch for the cloth. So the guru goes and asks for that. And he gets it and he says, this is Siva Prasadam. And Umavadi Sivacharya, who was a great learned Brahmin, he got that from the guru, flowing from his hand, and he called it the Guru Prasadam. Thus, the concept of social aristocracy or the concept of social supremacy was being challenged continuously by Sanatana Dharma. It was not challenged by the colonial people. It was challenged by Sanatana Dharma. We'll go to the next one. Yeah. So, I told you about Sri Mahabhakta Vijayam. This Mahabhakta Vijayam inspired Swami Sahajananda to fight for the rights of the scheduled communities. And who was his guru? Who gave him the name Swami Sahajananda? He was Karapatra Sivapragasa Swamigal. Just think about this. In those days, Karapatra Swamigal made a scheduled community person a guru and told that this boy, at that time he was a boy, he told that this boy is equal to Shankaracharya himself. That was the greatness. And how many of us even remember Swami Sahajananda? More importantly, how many of us remember Sivapragasa Karapatra Swamigal? His samadhi is there in Vyasarpadi. It is a place of great social spiritual renaissance because there he gave sannyasa to Swami Sahajananda. And one of the disciples of Karapatra Swamigal, he belonged to a Nayakar or Naidu community, I have forgotten. So he came to the Karapatra Swamigal and said, he wrote a letter and gave to him. In that letter he told Swami, I cannot tell this with my words, so I am writing this letter. If you are giving sannyasa to this scheduled community boy, I will have to kill you, I will poison you. So you should not give. So that was the kind of caste stratification under the colonial rule. And that was challenged by what? By the Advaita. By Advaita of Karapatra Swamigal. Karapatra Swamigal made the icon of Adi Shankara and took it on a Nagarvalam throughout Vyasarpadi at that time. These places should be honored. Indu Arannilayathurai is not going to honor it. Dravidian movement is not going to honor it. We have to. We, the people of Hindu Sangatan, we have to honor these people. We'll go to the next one fast. Okay. And next, the great people that we have to talk about. This is 2022. In December 12, you are going to have 150th birth anniversary of Dharmavir Munche. Munche, along with MC Raja, he created the pact that would allow reservations for the scheduled community, at the same time would not create separate electorates so that the British divide and rule policy would work. And these are the great people who worked this plan. Based on this plan only later Ambedkar-Gandhi Pact was created. We'll go to the next one. Yeah. Go to the next. And these two people we have to remember very, very importantly. One is Harbilas Sharda, who is on the left, and that is Jayakar. The pseudo social justice movement always talks about one particular thing, that they were the people who were at the forefront of women liberation. Today we have got a lot of women here. They all owe their presence here, not to E.V. Ramasamy, not to the Dravidianists, but to this person, Harbila Sarda, because he was the one who stopped child marriage. And he wrote a book. The name of the book is Supremacy of Hindu Civilization. So you have a Hindutvaite who actually bought the Sardar Act, which liberated the women. Then you have Jayakar. Jayakar was the person who first asked for reservation for scheduled community in police force. He was a Hindu Mahasabha president. We'll go to the next fast. This 2023 is the 100th year of a great resolution by Sitaram Keshav Bole. So what did he do? In 1923, a resolution was passed in Bombay Legislative Assembly. It recognized the right of scheduled communities to use public water bodies, public roads, public parks, and the public spaces at large. This was responsible for the Magadh Satyagraha. And the person who passed it, S.K. Bole, who is sitting on the lap of Dr. Ambedkar, remember this person. He was the provincial head of Bombay Hindu Mahasabha. And he met Dr. Ambedkar when he was going to the Constituent Assembly and told, you should announce saffron flag as the national flag of India. That was the person who brought the resolution that created Magadh Satyagraha. So just think about it. When somebody tells you that they want the social justice, we have to tell that we are the persons who created the social justice movement in this nation. Social justice actually owes its existence today, as it is today, in a positive way to Hindutva and not to the Dravidianists. The Dravidianists are the pseudo-social reformers. Because you have to ask them this question. When Harbilas Sharda and Dr. Ambedkar united, Harbilas Sharda, a Hindutvaite, Dr. Ambedkar united, they were fighting for Sharda Act. What was E.V. Ramasamy Nayakar doing? I think the answer is unspeakable, so I won't tell that answer. Okay. Now, we'll go to the last one, I think. Yeah. The same way, I want to remember you another one aspect. Babu Jagajeevan Ram. There was a book written about BJP by one Vinay Sithapati. He is a professor of Kalinga University, Ashoka University, or Ashoka University. So you would be knowing, typical liberal person, and he has brought out an important thing. That is, when the Janata government was there, do you know who was the choice of RSS and Jan Sangh to become the Prime Minister of India? It was Babu Jagajeevan Ram. Had RSS and Jansang, then became BJP, had they had their way, India would have got its first scheduled community prime minister, Babu Jagajeevan Ram. When Babu Jagajeevan Ram wanted to pass a resolution against untouchability, when he was young at Hindu Mahasabha, it was Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya who stood and supported him against the orthodoxy. In the same way, you have Suraj Ban, who was the national chairman of scheduled community. He was a RSS pracharak. And it was during his time that he understood what was the problem in rural India. He told that lands should be given to the scheduled community, and he took action also. So in all this, what you are seeing is that we have contributed solidly to both rationalism, holistic rationalism, and true social reforms, true social justice. Never let the Dravidian movement, the Dravidianists, cheat people with their lies again. Because I want to end this with one very strong statement. One very strong statement for the BJP people here. It is this. Every vote in this battle, it has civilizational consequences. Your vote for BJP is a vote for Indian civilization and Indian nation. Your vote against BJP is a visa we are personally signing to allow terrorists enter India and kill our children. We have to understand that. With this, I finish my talk. Thank you very much. Vande Mataram. Jai Hind.